I don't know this lunatic.
Hello friends, this is an Art Made for Us video, which means I go to a place, take some photos and share them with you, and hopefully we get some inspiration flowing to make some art later on. This time I'm at RHS Garden Hyde Hall, which is in Essex, England. Myself and a friend were in the mood for a meander, and Hyde Hall is excellent for that. With over 365 acres of land to explore, there is plenty to see and there is always an intriguing pathway to follow. Nature-inspired sculptures can be spotted throughout the gardens. Here's a sycamore sculpture which moves gently with the breezes. This is one of those places that changes throughout the year, with different plants and flowers thriving at different times. As we went on the cusp between spring and summer, we were able to see plenty of blooms and lush greenery. I am a sucker for taking photos in a place like this, stopping every few seconds to zoom in on a flower or take in a view. So thank you to my friend for patiently wandering beside me and for getting just as excited when a robin landed right next to us. Hi little robin. Bye little robin.
Stranded bee. Go on, Mr. Bee. Get to the side. Well, that's not useful. You made it. Onto a flower.
There are various garden areas to explore, from the dry garden to the vegetable plots to the sky meadow, but Hyde Hall didn't always look like this. As far back as 1086, the land was a farm dwelling and was a fully operational farm when the Robinsons purchased the estate in 1955. The couple didn't know much about gardening at first, but their garden evolved as their enthusiasm and knowledge grew. In 1993, the Robinsons donated the garden they had cultivated along with the surrounding farmland to the RHS, and now we all get to enjoy it. Now, not every art wander leads to making art on site. We couldn't quite decide on what we wanted to draw that day, and that's okay. Some days are just like that. An art wander can be about simply soaking up an experience rather than trying to force anything onto a sketch pad. But that's why taking photos is so handy, because we have plenty to look back on at home when the creativity might start flowing more. So let's head into the shed, because now I have an idea of what I'd like to make. Remember, you can join in too if you'd like. These are just a few of the photos I took on my outing, and you're welcome to use them as references for your own art adventures. You can find all of the photos in the gallery on my website gemmathepen.com. There's a link in the description. Click on the reference gallery button, pop in the password makingtogether and go have a look. I cannot tell you how happy I was when I found I could use this weirdly fancy Ferrero Rocher box to store small canvases in. And I'm cracking it open today to pull out a linen canvas that I've had hibernating for ages. I've never painted on a linen canvas before, and the reason it's taken me this long to use this one is that it felt weirdly special to me, and I was scared to paint on it badly. Which is ridiculous. So today I'm going to get over it and I'm going for it. This is the photo I've chosen. I just like how it flows across the frame. It looks almost like a hilly landscape, but it's just a big old bushy plant. I was going to sketch out the main shapes, but the surface of the canvas turned out to be kind of waxy, so instead I'm plopping straight on in with acrylic paints. I have a selection of pinks and greens and a come what may attitude. I'm not planning anything radical for this paint session. I'm really just aiming to paint the flowers. I have a vague inkling about putting a pattern in the sky section later, but I'll decide on that once I've got a feel for where the heck this is going. So while Gem in the shed is figuring out the colours on the canvas, let's chat about the art ponder of the day. How important is colour in your art? Okay, so you know the whole no one sees colours quite the same train of thought. The idea that what I class as yellow could be your version of blue. Whenever I start thinking about that, I fall into a bunny warren of wonder because it is such a great reminder that none of us can ever know exactly what another person is experiencing. Colours play a huge role in communication, and art is a form of communication. The associations around certain colours which we have learned subconsciously, such as the trustworthiness of blue, the royalty of purple, the passion of red and the energy of orange, may be universally understood, but that is only because they are labels we use and labels are taught. The idea that behind those labels is a kaleidoscope of shifting shades which everyone has a unique twist on is pretty cool. It also makes the creation and the viewing of art pretty interesting. Have you explored colour theory in your art, such as focusing on complementary or tertiary colour palettes? Do you prioritise using colour theory, or do you find yourself wanting to ignore it? Personally, I find colour theory interesting to think about, and I can also find it helpful as a tool for triggering ideas when I'm feeling a bit stuck. But in terms of making art, when I'm making it purely for myself, I create in a much more intuitive way. It sometimes means that I use a lot of the same colours. Yes, yellow, I'm looking at you. And it's simply because I like them. Yellow lifts my mood, so I want to plonk it on everything. I would say colour is important to me because I enjoy it, and therefore it becomes important in my art. And I'd like to include that the stripping away of colour and creating only in black and white is also something I enjoy immensely. As ever, I'll be pinning this art ponder as a comment below, so do hit reply and let me know how important colour is to you. This was my favourite part of this painting, when I got my smaller brush out and started finding the highlights and the lowlights on all of those flowers. On the day I was creating this, I felt super quiet, tired and withdrawn, and I think that was why I felt drawn to creating from that particular photo. Painting so many similar flowers across the canvas felt repetitive, but in a good way. In a way where I could give my hands the lead and my brain could watch for a while. It took longer than I thought it would, but I appreciated the time out, and seeing something come into being on this canvas that I had so long been saving felt pretty good. I really liked painting on this surface. The beigey background gave it a different feeling to painting on white. I had been thinking that I would likely use a really dark green or even a black to fill in the shadowy in-between areas of the foliage, but the more I painted, the more I really liked the simplicity of seeing those linen textures coming through. It reminded me of an old tapestry or something in a historic house. Heritage vibes! And so in the end I decided to use gold paint in a really subtle crisscross way, echoing the stems and the vines deep inside the foliage. It was a bit like a pattern, but without any particular logic to it. I'm not sure how well you can see how it shines in the light. As I say, it is subtle, but I think it's a sweet touch. So that's my painting. I enjoyed making it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it come together and hanging out with me today. By the way, if this is the first Art Made For Us video you're watching and you'd like to see previous adventures, check out my Art Made For Us playlist after this. Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope I'll see you again in my next video. Stay curious, stay creative, keep making happy, and I'll see you next time.